You are listening to the National Gang Center podcast, Voices from the Field. In each episode, we hear from experts and go in depth about their stories and experience with addressing gangs and communities. This program is supported by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. The points of view and opinions expressed within do not necessarily represent those of the U.S. Department of Justice.
I'm Sean Baldwin with the National Gang Center, and I want to welcome everyone to our podcast. This episode is a response to several questions that we've received about multi-generational gang intervention. That is, working with youth from generations of family gang involvement. Like always, we've found an expert to help us with this subject. Donnie Gomez is the program manager with Volunteers of America in Los Angeles, California, and he's been doing gang intervention work there for more than 20 years. Donnie, welcome to our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time, Donnie. Donnie, do you mind if as we get started here, can you tell us how you got started in gang intervention work?
Yes, I'll start a little bit further from the beginning. I came to this country at 10 years old, got involved in gangs at 10 years old, went through the system, was incarcerated. When I was released, somebody from intervention that I grew up not liking actually outreached to me, introduced an opportunity of becoming a federal firefighter with the U.S. Forest Service. I became a hotshot for the U.S. Forest Service and the A&F. And then from there, they just kind of started to get me involved into working with my community, my area, and just kind of took off from there. And I got to like it, and I got to learn a lot more and had a lot of mentors in my life. And, I've been blessed to have this opportunity to now do the same for others.
That's incredible, Donnie, that you took that, what you went through in your childhood and are turning that into something that's helping probably at this point thousands and thousands of youth. So we appreciate that work for sure. So you said you worked as a hotshot firefighter, and then you went to gang intervention. So you went from one sort of hot job to another for sure, right? So
yeah, it kind of we had a beautiful program back in the days in Los Angeles where we trained a lot of guys that used to come out of the fire camps and prisons, right? And they already had that trade, they already had that mentality, that experience, and that was definitely a nice opportunity.
Donnie, what convinced you? So you said this intervention work you didn't particularly care for in the beginning. What convinced you to listen to what they had to say?
Well, I really finally understood what they were trying to do in our communities, and not just reduce violence, but give us other outlets, other opportunities for our lives. When we saw that there was really no hope, when we saw that the only thing that we could do was crime to get ahead, right? These guys were out there teaching us that, we did have opportunities. We can overcome our barriers. We just needed to understand how. We needed the individuals to help us navigate through those systems that we didn't know, right? And that's what they did. And, they took our excuses out of the way, really.
What a great way to explain that. So now you go from that, what you were doing earlier and your life experience, and now you're actually leading several teams of intervention workers in Los Angeles. So congratulations on that success. So let's focus on youth with fathers, mothers, grandparents, and even probably great grandparents that are gang involved. How often are you working with youth that come from gang involved families?
All the time. Sadly enough, in LA, gangs go back at the early 1900s, right? So we do have several generations here. Crips and Bloods go back to the early 60s. So we have definitely several generations here of parents that, it's maybe going on their third, fourth generation of children that are gang involved. It's just a matter of, understanding each individual household demographic to see what they want for themselves and their future.
So does a fact that a kid's parents are gang involved, or they come from a family that has generations of gang involvement, does that change your intervention strategies that you're using at all?
Definitely, it is a big factor because remember, in the household, there's a lot of influence as well. So one thing that we need to know is there positive influence? Are they supporting that view still, or have they changed their mind? Have they changed their philosophy, and do they want their kids to do something different? Right. So that's why we take every case as it goes. We individualize it. Why we don't generalize everything as this is how it should be, but more than anything, try to understand the family, the structure of the family, and see how we can get involved and help.
If a youth that you're working with, if their family has sort of left that lifestyle behind, do you find that they want the same for their children? I think there's this maybe misconception that parents that have been involved in gang activity at some point in their lives want their kids to lead the same lifestyle. Is that true?
Definitely, I would say most really don't want their kids to go through the same thing that they went through, right? Because they know all the hardships, right? Everybody knows if you're gang involved, you're gonna get stabbed, you're gonna get shot, you're gonna get beat up, you're gonna go to jail, you might even get killed, right? So we know that's a fact. It's gonna happen sooner or later if you're involved, right? So nobody wants their children definitely to go through that, right? So some parents definitely are pushing their kids to have other alternatives. It's just a matter of educating them on what other alternatives are there. Because remember, if nobody really kind of helped them get out of it, they kind of did it on their own or grew out of it. So they don't know what resources are there, what other opportunities are there, or chances for their kids. They kind of just want them to stop, and you can't just stop something. It's like an addiction. You can't just stop drinking, stop smoking, right? It has to be gradually, and you have to introduce something else, right?
So I want to just to be clear. I know that some of the research says that kids that come from families that have other family members that are active in gangs have a higher risk of joining gangs, but that's not necessarily true in every case, and we need to make sure that we don't just assume that a child that grows up in a family that was gang involved is going to become gang involved. And in fact, a very small percentage of kids that grow up in these neighborhoods ever become gang involved. So I just want to be clear about that and make sure that we're not misleading people. Does so in a case where a family member is cooperative and they want to see their child move away from the gang activity, do you find that the parents are easier to work with?
Definitely, because now we have the support when they come to our office, and we have the support when they go at home, right? So that makes it a lot easier for a youth to be introduced to a lot more positive things now in their life, because now it's not just the parents telling them you got to change, you got to do something, right? But the kids outreaching to help, and everybody's really telling them the same thing, right? Everybody's now our next role is to teach them and teach the parents on how we can work together so that the youth can reach that goal of not being incarcerated, not getting shot, and finding employment, finding education, learning a trade. So this is what we try to do with the parents, making sure that they understand these steps, because a lot of the times the parents, they've gone through so much with their kids that they want an immediate fix, right? So we understand that that's not going to happen. So we let them know that look, it's a changing process. It takes time. Just like we have them look in their lives. How long did it take you, really, to change your life? Right? It wasn't something that it was immediate. It took some time, and it took quite a few steps. And the same thing is going to happen with your kids, right? We just have to be patient, and we have to be positive. And main thing, we have to be persistent.
Right. So you're actually spending a lot of time working with the family, maybe just as much time as you are working with the kids, right?
Well, the family is included in our case management, right? Every month, what we have is our case managers and our outreach workers, we call them CIWs, community intervention workers. They have to meet a minimum of 2 times with our youth and a minimum of 2 times with the family, right? And then out of that, they still have to have a team meeting within our staff, case manager, and outreach workers to see if we're meeting our goals, if we are helping, what do we need to change. Maybe we need to change our strategy for next month, right? So we start with small little goals and making sure that we get everybody involved.
So I'm sure that not all these families are welcoming your services right from the start, um, and especially maybe in the case where the families are still somewhat gang involved. Do you encounter resistance in these situations?
Yeah, we had situations where we've been yelled out about somebody's house, kicked out of somebody's house. Family pulled out a gun on us, right? Because that's what they want their kids to do. That was their mentality. That's who they were, right? So we had to respect that. We had to understand. Okay, this is that mentality. The parent might not want the kids to do that. They think that we're maybe taking them away or changing everything that they have taught them. But the kid wants something different, right? That the kid doesn't want to be involved in that no more. So we have to find other grounds of support. If we know that the parent at home does not give them that support, then who else in the family or in the community can give them that positive support? Because again, we can't do them by ourselves either. Just for them to come to us and depend on us, right? We need individuals that are next to him that saw him grow up, that that can nurture that positiveness within its life. So definitely, if we cannot find the immediate parents that support within them, then we try to find somebody else as well within his own community that can give us that support.
So it sounds like that's an important part of your strategy, especially in these situations where you have family members that may be not cooperating quite so well, is to find somebody else in the youth's life that you can work with that can provide them with the support that they need. That's that's a great piece of advice right there, Donnie, for sure. Are
Well,
there any other strategies that you think are effective in working with these youth that have come from these families with multi-generational gang
yeah,
involvement?
well, definitely. One thing that I learned is that us as workers, our staff, we can't do it by ourselves, right? That before I know that intervention, back in the days when I started, we didn't think about the family support or somebody else. It was like we had to be the influence. We had to be the individuals that needed to help and change. And it wasn't just very exhausting, but we were failing because how can you help 20 youth, 30 youth, or that caseload, in somebody's life at a time? It's impossible, right? So I learned to get as much support from the youth's own community, friends, family, right, that can help me through this journey. So I don't have 20, 30 kids calling me all the time try to depend on me, right? But they have not just me, but they might have their cousin, their friends, somebody else that they can depend on as well for that support. So that definitely is something that I learned and I had to mature to understand, to let go, right? Because sometimes we get so close to our youth that we want to nurture too much, right? But we can't do it by ourselves. So that's definitely something that I learned, that I need everybody in our community to help, right? I need everybody's services to help. I cannot just do it by myself.
Donnie, when you're working with a youth and a family, what's your goal? What are you trying to get to as you're working? When do you know that you've been successful?
Well, I start with simple, achievable goals, right? I don't try to tell somebody, well, you're going to stop, committing crime and you're going to stop doing this and I'm going to change your life. It's silly, right? But I start at something simple first. I try to sit down and understand their wants and their needs. It's simple. What is it that you want to do and where do you want to go, right? Most kids, their goals are very simple. I want to make money. I want a job, right? So sure, no problem. I start with first, do you have an ID? 9 out of 10 times they don't, right? They have been trying to get their documents in place, right? So you can't get a job, you can't get an education, you can't learn a trade if you don't have those. So we start by that, something that they've been trying to get for a while, and a lot of times they can't get it because they have tickets, right? They have a lot of infractions, right? So they owe court fees, they owe court money. So the system is in place so that they can't get certain things. but we know those services. We know how to get over those barriers, right? We know agencies that can help get through that. So we partner with them, and first thing we get them an ID, and you can't, but it's amazing how happy they see that they finally got an ID or a driver's license, something that they thought they were never going to achieve because they thought they were in a hole, right? They got away from those tickets, they got away from the courts, right? Little by little, they start to feel like they're digging themselves out of the hole, and that's the goal, that they're digging themselves out. It's not you doing it, right? So they're feeling self sufficient. So the next goal is, we try to, if they would do one employment, we work with other agencies that they do a lot of internships, 120 hours, and they pay them about between $17 to $20 an hour, so they start to learn what it is to show up on time, right? To clock in, right? To understand certain rules when you come to work, right? Some kids will say, well, if they come high, right, or smelling like weed, and they tell me, oh, well, marijuana is legal here in California. I'm like, look, alcohol is legal too, but that doesn't mean you're gonna come in drunk. You're gonna come in smelling like alcohol either, right? You gotta respect the workplace as well, right? We'll send them home without pay, right? So they understand that that this is really part of the process. If you really want to mature, you want, because a lot of them want to be independent and want their own companies. Well, would you deal with an employee that would do the same thing that you're doing, right? So we gotta get them in that mindset that they understand, well, this is what you want for you. Would you be willing to be put in this situation as well, right? So little by little, they start to understand and they start to make the change. But like I say, it's gradual. It takes time. Some kids are ready real quick, 3 6 months, and man, you see them, and we only see them when they come back and say hello and telling us that they're doing well, right? Others, it takes a we have some clients that we're still working with them for like 3 4 years, right? Because they do things, they go to jail, they come back, they want help, they go to jail, they come back, they want help, and we don't give up on them. We just hope that sooner or later they'll finally get tired of that lifestyle.
Right. And I hear that when I talk with people that do intervention work, I hear that persistence is extremely important. You can't give up on these kids because these kids have been given up on, their whole life sometimes. And that persistence, it's awesome to hear that you're able to work with these kids for years and years, if that's what it takes to get them out of their situation. Is I hear some people talk about that aren't in intervention work. I hear them talk about um, the goal being getting the kids out of the gangs, completely away from the gangs. Is that a good goal to start with?
No, because you can get the kid hurt, right? Especially talking about getting out of the gang. Because when you start to say those words, you get a lot of individuals nervous, right? Because remember, this kid, they have him for a reason, right? He might serve a purpose, right? So you're trying to take away that purpose. So what I try to tell the kid is, it's not that you're really getting out of the gang. How best I can explain it is, if somebody goes to college and they get involved in a fraternity, right? When you're in college, you do dumb stuff, you act foolishly. You might even end up in jail for, doing dumb things, right, with your friends. But once you're away from college and you're done, and you mature, they're still your friends. They're still your fraternity, right? You just stop doing foolish things, right? Same thing when it comes to being gang involved. What we let our youth know is that yes, you did a lot of foolishness. Yes, you got involved in a lot of negative stuff. But now the next goal is, how can you start to get in positive things, right? Your friends are still your friends, right? But they're gonna see you that you are outgrowing, that you are maturing, and they're gonna want the same thing as well, right? Because now you're gonna positively influence them to wanting something else. And that's the funniest thing that always happens, that in a gang, and when we first start working with a new gang, we do get a lot of resistance until we finally get one guy that'll say, all right, I'll take you guys on your offer to help. And they see that, okay, this guy got an ID, he started working, he's learning a trade. Then all of a sudden we get like 15, 20 guys from that gang wanting the same thing, because they want to do something else, because they're tired of standing in the corner, not making money, getting into trouble, getting picked up by the cops, right? They want something else. But it just takes that one individual to positively influence them, to help them in something else. And that's what we try to do. Try to make sure that we let them know that whatever you did for your gangs before, yeah, it was in benefit of the gang, right? Now I tell them, now you got to be selfish. Now you got to do things for yourself, right? You got to work for yourself. You got to provide for your family, right? You got to create your own career. You want your own car, right? Things of that nature. So they start to see, okay, I want something else. My friends are still my friends. They're always going to be my friends, but now I want something else for myself. And that's what we try to tell them. And little by little, they stop being criminally active. And really, that's the goal, to help them stop being criminally active and seeing what we can replace instead of them being criminally active, whether it's sports, whether it's employment, right, whether it's trade, something else that's going to be positive in their life.
And that's exactly what we want to get to. That's the goal. We want to stop the violence in our community, right? We don't care if
Right.
kids hang out with each other. That doesn't matter. It's the violence that we've got to stop. That's incredible. So, Donnie, tell me what doesn't work. Do you have advice for intervention workers who are out there? Just what you've learned over your 20 years experience. What does not work when you're trying to do intervention with these gang involved families?
There's uh there's three rules I have for intervention work. That sometimes I see some individuals, especially when they're new, they're still kind of straddling that line. And one is, I don't get involved in gang politics, right? Because when you start to get involved in gang politics, people get hurt, right? That's when you people try to make decisions where somebody gets hurt, and if you're getting involved in gang politics, then you're getting pulled in, right, as well. So and I'm very straightforward with the guys. When I get to meet a new gang, I let them know that, look, I don't play that game. This is how I don't do this. I respect your decisions, but if this happens, I'm walking away for their safety and for my safety, right? Because if something happens where the cops learn about something, at least they know that I have nothing to do with. That's one thing. Same thing with gang economics. How you make your money, right? If it's an illegal way, I don't want to know about it. That's your business, right? And I'm staying away because if something happens for your safety and my safety, I don't know anything about it, right? And the next thing is, how do you present yourself for this work, right? Do you present yourself as an individual of change that is there to help, or do you present yourself as the big homie still, as well? I'm doing this, but I'm still also this individual, right? So how are you gonna positively influence those around you if you still present yourself as the big homie, right? Yes, that's who you were. Yes, that's what helped you get into this type of work, and that's definitely very useful. But now we're in a different business. We're in a business of change. We're in a business of helping our youth. We're in a business of representing something positive, right? So that's one thing. When a lot of them, a lot of individuals that are new come, I see them kind of struggle through those three things of kind of like changing their life or being somebody else, because they think that somebody's trying to change them, when I usually just tell them it's just simple. It's just part of maturing, part of growing up, right? Do you still want to go back to jail? Do you still want to do this, right? What is it? You got to make a choice, because if you're not ready, that's okay. No worries. Let me know when you're ready. We'll be here, right? But the last thing that we want is for you to claim that you're doing this work and still being criminally active or doing things that you're not supposed to, or negatively influencing our youth. That's one thing. The other one, it's a lot of people are very eager, right? They've changed their lives. It's a newfound, happiness in their heart, and they want to force it on everyone, on every youth, to say, well, you have to change this, well, you have to do this, or why can't you understand this, right? And you lose a lot of youth, right? Because maybe it happened for that individual that fast, right? But that's not the case for everyone, right? We had a situation where it was funny. This guy was positively helping the youth. He was even going to church with them and everything, and you know it, things were working out until the youth just kind of got away from him, and even the parents, call saying that, why are you pushing my kid to be a Christian when we're Catholic, right? I don't want you around anymore. I don't want you to push this on him. And the kid also felt a little kind of pressure, right, as well, when we tell them, look, it's you got to make sure that it's their choice, right? We're not here to force change on anyone. A lot of people say, well, a job will change an individual, education, right, certain opportunities, religion, and they try to push those incentives on them. That's not my job. My job is to give you a lot of options and guide you through what you will think will need in your life, right? And if what you choose doesn't work, that's okay. We'll choose something else, right? But as long as you're choosing something positive, we're in a good road, right? We're in a good path. So that's my goal, to put a lot of positive things in front of you, help you navigate through that, help you change through that, be very patient, definitely very patient, right? I think a lot of especially a lot of my new guys, the youth, that's something that they do lack, is patience, because they want quick change. We're in a society now that everything is quick, everything is immediate, right? So that's what they want, and we got to let them understand, that that's not reality when it comes to somebody's personality and life, right? It's gradual, so you have to be definitely very patient. You have to be very attentive. So, in our organization, we're very meticulous on making sure that they're always checking in with our youth, even if they haven't heard from them. Go find out where they are, go see what's going on, let them know that they matter, right? And believe me, that our youth are surprised when our guys are knocking at their doors, saying, "Hey, we haven't seen you in 2 weeks. What's going on? I want to make sure you're okay." Right? And they start to understand that, wow, somebody actually cares about us. Somebody matters. Somebody's asking me to come to a trip to do something positive. So that definitely, that persistence and that patience, that does pay off. And we've been very welcome in a lot of communities that in the beginning they didn't want us there, right? And now, I mean, we've been in there for, we're actually the biggest gang intervention organization in the city of Los Angeles now. And I grew up from people not wanting me in their communities to expanding in more areas.
What has changed over the 20 years when you first started working in intervention work to today? What do you think the biggest change has been in this line of work?
Has changed a lot, definitely. I mean, I started doing this in 2000 and 2002, as staff. And, back in those days, I mean, you had a lot more guys out there, about 30, 40 guys in the corner. We had gang injunctions, we had all kinds of stuff. So it was rougher. It's just that, you knew who was a gang member and who was not. Nowadays, you see a kid with skinny jeans, and he's the one that's doing the most work out there, and you can't really tell one from the other, right? But you see a kid that looks like a skater, and he's the one as well. So definitely that has changed. Nobody wears the same uniforms like before, but the violence definitely still the same, right? That has not changed. It's just a matter of us also adapting to what has changed. I had to adapt to the media, right? Because now I have guys starting trouble on Instagram, right? Stuff that you never thought about, things like that before, right? And we know that one picture on Instagram can get a few people killed, right? So trying to make sure that we understand that, trying to make sure that we catch it before it happens. So just having the right individuals and the right understanding, and the youth that, they're always teaching me new things, especially when it comes to technology, or what they're doing, or what's going on, right? So that we can prevent the next shooting and the next incidents. Just trying to make sure that, when we're doing gang intervention, this type of work, it's fluid, it's always changing. So understanding that, yeah, we have to change as well, right? Not getting stuck like a dinosaur to all, our habits. And understanding that we have to understand our youth, we have to understand their needs and their wants, and work with them. And we do a lot of that. I made a few mistakes where I try to have youth. Well, if boxing works over here, I'm gonna get everybody to box over here as well, and it's gonna work. And we had no takers, right? But we started something else. We asked them, and then we had like 40, 50 youth every afternoon doing something that they wanted to do. So, now we're with the philosophy that whenever I try to modify my budget and I have any extra funds, I sit down with them and ask them, how can we invest it in you guys? And what can we do? Because it doesn't just give them ownership, but now it helps them get involved into our programs, right? They're taking the lead, right? And we have a lot more participation.
Donnie, what's your best advice for a brand new intervention worker that's just starting? What's your best advice for them?
My best advice is to have a lot of patience, to listen to anybody that's older, that has done it a lot longer than them, and ask for their advice as well, right? Ask for their guidance, because that's what helped me when I came in. I used to have a short fuse. Even when I started doing gang intervention, people would say something and I still had that short fuse, right? So I had individuals that taught me patience, that taught me how to be what they call diplomatic, right? But understanding that there was a much bigger goal, right? Understanding that by me still not changing myself, I was still going to end up back in prison again if I didn't do this, right? So understanding that I had to mature for myself, for my family, right, and for those that I wanted to help, because if they still see me in that light, how can I help them, right? So definitely took a lot of individuals around me that helped me, that pulled my ear, that told me things that I didn't want to hear, but I understood that they said them because they care for me and they wanted me to change.
Donnie, thank you so much for taking some time and sharing all that knowledge that you have, that you've worked so hard and so long to gather up, and sharing it with, we're seeing this field of intervention work expand greatly across America. It's a wonderful thing, because it truly is, I think, the best solution to the violence problems that we have in our communities. I just want to thank you again. We really appreciate you sharing those little bits of knowledge that you've gained over the years.
Well, thank you, Sean. Definitely, it's a pleasure, and anytime I can help, it's always, I'm always here. I really appreciate your time as well.
Awesome. So for our audience, if you'd like more information about gang intervention, I'd encourage you to visit the National Gang Center's website and our YouTube channel. These sites are filled with resources and tools that are available to you at no cost. Be safe.
The National Gang Center is committed to informing, equipping, and training communities to prevent gang violence, reduce gang involvement, and suppress gang-related crime. For additional information regarding the National Gang Center, visit nationalgangcenter.ojp.gov, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or send us an email at information@nationalgangcenter.gov.